here to have more opinions, more stories, and more approaches to a specific question, because I only know what I know, and we all kind of only know what we've been
Mhm.
exposed to or understand. And so the more options we can give people, the more we can just discuss these topics. And you might just get one little thing from something one person says that really resonates with you, and you think, okay, well, that's the next thing that I need to look into, or that might be something I want to try. So that's kind of the idea for this stream. We'll be doing this every Thursday. And so the topic for this week is it's kind of about having conversations with people in your life, or if you are spending a lot of time online, either as a content creator in this space, or you're leaving a lot of comments and having discussions with people online. You can meet resistance a lot, or you can meet questions. And some people are genuinely interested and they have questions, but a lot of times people are, aggressively asking questions, or very stuck in their paradigm, and very resistant to some new information. And so I asked you guys in the poll of the week, what's the number one question out of the choices I gave you that people ask you when you find out that you're eating carnivore or ketovore? I know a lot of you in my audience, at least, are including some plants or coffee or certain things, and you would call that ketovore. So, and then if it was something else beyond these questions, leave a comment. We got 310 votes this week, so that's really cool. So thanks
Ooh,
for everybody
great.
who voted and participated. And so the choices were, doesn't meat cause cancer? And the second one was, isn't that much fat bad for you? Third one was, what about your cholesterol? And the fourth one, how do you poop? How do you go to the bathroom essentially without eating any fiber? And then the fifth one was, maybe you got somebody who is interested and they said, oh, that's so interesting. Where can I learn more? Somebody who's curious. And we got a lot of cool comments, which we can go through here a little bit if we get time. But 59% of you voted for the third option, which was, what about your cholesterol? Seems that most people are asking about that. And then that was followed up with 19% about fat. Isn't that much fat bad for you? And then the last three were kind of all right there in the middle, or, the same number. So pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So, well, I guess we'll just kind of go around, and we'll start with Ellie here today. I think you were last time. So,
Yay.
what
That
do
works for me.
you, I mean, how does this work for you in conversation? What do people ask you, and how do you typically try to answer these types of questions?
Yeah, it's really funny because I think that a lot of people who know me, they know that I'm not just going to do something randomly. There probably is a reason for it. But there are, people who aren't as close to me and they do question, do you only eat meat? Does that include vegetables and fruit? It's usually like paired with, you don't eat vegetables and fruit. What are you doing? And it's kind of funny story, but sad. And at the beginning, when I first started my YouTube channel, I really wanted to find other people like me who have found healing on the carnivore way of eating. And I've also had success with keto as well. So we're all brothers and sisters in my book. And when I got the interview with Carrie from Homestead How, that was like right in the beginning of my YouTube journey. And I started gaining subscribers kind of fast from that interview. And I told my mom, I said, hey, Mom, I'm going to be having an interview with a man who's making a documentary about the way I'm eating. And she started, and I think that might have been a mistake because it was still quite early in my journey. I think that might have been like 100 days in at that point. And she was quite embarrassed, to be honest. She was embarrassed, and she just was saying that she did not understand why I would do this. Like, why would I want to remove all of these foods, even though she had seen me at my worst with obesity, chronic constipation, rosacea, knee pain. I had horrible brain fog. I was incredibly depressed. I had depersonalization disorder. Like, she saw me with all of these horrible things that were happening to me, and I was having results with removing, the majority of carbs and then ultimately having no carbs and sugar. And it made me really sad. It made me really sad. And I didn't talk to her for a month because, it was like, I'm being vulnerable. I'm pouring my heart and soul out to strangers on the internet, which, we'll probably talk a little bit about, that it's like they're ruthless sometimes. And they're also like the warmest, biggest hug, because I always like to say this, that sometimes carnivore can be isolating, you know. Not everybody gets it, and that's okay. Like in your poll question at the end, if someone was genuinely interested in it, I feel like they're a beautiful unicorn just waiting. And I don't think that there are that many people in your life unless they're truly open-minded. And so yeah, I feel like I've had backlash, especially considering I feed my kids predominantly carnivore, ketovore some days. Sometimes it's animal based. It's like kind of like, we flow through it, but most days it's carnivore. And my entire family feels our best on this. And I get a lot of backlash about like, how could you feed your kids this way? It's like, let them be kids. And that, but when you truly learn about how horrible all of these big processed foods are, and the surprise ingredients that are on the back and stuff like that, and all the sugar, and as all things that we're learning, it's like, why would I want my kids to be set up to like get sick just like I did? And so yeah, mostly it's like a lot of questions, but I do think that there is a nice little section on the internet where people reach out to me, and if they have questions, they leave questions on my Instagram or on my YouTube page. I say, message me and I'll get back to you. And it's nice to have that open conversation.
That's great. Yeah, I agree with that. It can be so good and then so difficult sometimes. And I think it's quite different online versus in person. Having these discussions, it can be, at least with family or friends or people that truly most likely want your have your best interests at heart and want the best for you, but obviously are skeptical of all this, versus kind of the situation that the three of us are in, and so many others online who we get these random comments from people that are sometimes really mean and really hateful and very uninformed. And so there's kind of a distinction to be made. I think you were talking about that, where it's almost two different animals doing it online versus in person. But yeah, I have a similar experience. I made the transition to being a mom, and then kind of started my second round on carnivore after that. And so I was really out of a lot of spheres of influence and, socializing that I used to be a part of, which were work related. So that was actually a benefit for me, because I barely ever find myself in that situation where I have to talk to other people about it. So that's actually kind of a plus. But so
That
most
is
of my
nice.
interaction is online, which I can handle to some degree. But Larry, what do you think? How do you answer these questions online versus in person? What do you think?
Yeah, I try to use empathy, and I try to feel for them, like where they're at, because I was there where I thought carnivore was crazy. When I first did keto, I'd heard of carnivore. I said, well, that's just insane. Those people are just, I didn't even look at it. I just dismissed it immediately, 100%. I didn't engage with them. I didn't even ask questions. I was not interested. I'm like, that's just crazy. Right. So I was at that point where I think a lot of people may be. And so I get a lot of those questions too. And online, I try to answer it I thank them for the question. I always do that, or their comment, even if it's completely wrong. And then I try to point them to resources that can answer it better than me if they don't believe me. Because fine, don't believe me, because literally I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving medical advice or dietary advice at all. I'm just explaining my experience and what I've learned. And please don't take my experience. Go and see the doctors. Go see please do. They're way better than I am at explaining this, and they have formal education, while not necessarily in this dietary stuff. In fact, I was talking yesterday on our live stream that the three of us probably have much more combined dietary experience than most doctors do out there that have MDs by their name. And that's sad, but it's true. And what they do have is wrong because they were trained by Seventh-day Adventist schools and medical companies that are trying to sell products. And these medical companies write the curriculum, and they grade the papers, and they teach them what pill to give for what disease they have. And that's kind of the way they operate. And so you can't blame people. And also there's the media and getting paid, they're getting paid by commercial companies to go out and sell grains and medicine and all these different sugars. So, the world stacked up on their argument, and I get it. So I try to be thoughtful, and I try to answer in a way that is educating. And in fact, this is a great example because you're going to run into this later, Neah. You're a new mom with a young child. I have a 14-year-old boy. He did carnivore over the summer. And then he came to me a little while ago and said, Dad, I'm getting constipated, so I'm going to switch over to regular diet. And he says, I want to eat more fiber. So I was like, at first I was like taken aback, but I'm like, okay, he's 14. And then when he turned 14, I wrote a letter to him talking about becoming a man and making decisions in your own life. And that every year going forward from here on, every decision will carry more weight going forward into his life. And I don't want to make a decision for him. Now, I'm not going to go out and buy garbage. I'm not going to buy sugar cereal and stuff for him, but I'll buy him Whole Foods, that, keto stuff. And I said, listen, it's your decision. If you want to buy it with your money, I'll let you keep it in here. I'm not buying it because I'm not supporting those companies. But I said, I think that based on some statements you've made, you may have some bad information. So I just want you to have the right information to make the decisions you need to make. So I had him do a research study during spring break here. And I asked a bunch of questions. I had him watch a couple of videos and read a study on constipation and fiber intake from PubMed, which I got from one of the videos. And basically the whole premise is people have constipation. They remove fiber completely from their diet, and all of a sudden they don't have constipation anymore. And the doctor that was talking about it, I forget his name. He's a doctor from hey Christy, he's a doctor from Australia, and he had said in this video that adding fiber to decrease constipation is like adding cars to a car jam and hoping it goes faster. And it's like you're just adding bulk to, and you're gonna have bigger poops, but they're not going to go through faster. In fact, it'll slow you down and may cause constipation. So anyway, it's very interesting. And I gave him that. I just had him do some research on fiber, constipation, and sugar, and just referred directly to all experts on it. And he came back and he's like, yeah. And I said, now it's still your decision, but at least I know now he has the real facts and not the wives' tales that I believed, because I believed that. I was telling that, I was like, listen, I believe that. I know his mom still does. I'm like, I totally believe that. I totally thought I need to have salad. I need to have avocado. I need to have all these things to help my digestive system. But, looking back, like what Dr. Chafee said, that doesn't really make sense looking back at the history of man, right? Because what about people that don't have that stuff? They're still alive, like the Inuit or the Maasai. They're not dying, and they're not dying of constipation, right? Obviously. So, or anything else. So they're very healthy. So it's like, okay. So it kind of makes sense, but it's just, we get, brainwashed with all these messages that are just constantly sent and pounded. I don't know if you guys have seen a movie called They Live from the 1980s. You probably haven't. You're all young.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm going to do a movie review on it. I think you guys watch it. It is, okay, the reason it's a carnivore movie is because the message of the propaganda being put out. Basically, with the thing is, there's the world is kind of dystopian, but it's kind of like America is now, believe it or not. And these guys find these boxes of sunglasses, and if they put them on, they can see what the signs really say. If they take them off, they can't. So they put it on, and the signs says like, go to the beach, and then it says get married and multiply. Another sign say obey. Another sign say consume. And then he looks at money, like the guy has money in his hand. It says, this is your God on the money. It's really a cool movie. It's a John Carpenter movie from the 80s. So keep a lookout, because I'm going to do a movie review on that pretty soon. And I think it's a great even though it's not carnivore diet, it is carnivore mindset. Because once you take those glasses and put them on, you can't unsee. That's what I think. So yeah, I know it's a long discussion or long description, but anyway, that's my deal.
No, I love that. And you brought up a bunch of great points. And number one, I love that you do movie reviews. I think that's, I don't know if everyone knows that about your channel, but that's super cool.
Yeah.
And I love kind of extrapolating out the mindset of this way of eating and looking at that in a broader context, like, because it really has affected the way I look at a lot of other different things. And perhaps it went the other way around, like maybe me having skepticism about other things in my life prior to my diet and health journey, you know, made me very skeptical of the medical and health information that I was receiving from people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, I like that, because I think that's very common in this community too. It's like, we're not just questioning things in our diet and health realm. We're also looking at other areas of life too, and all areas of our lifestyle. So that's really cool. And I agree with the doctors. I'm so grateful that there are continuing to be more and more, you know, medical professionals that are willing and courageous enough to come online and have channels and put their medical licenses on the line in many cases to talk about this way of eating. And there's so many great people to learn from now. And I do the same thing. I try to answer questions from my experience the best I can, especially if they're you know, specifically related to gut issues, or I was struggling with energy and different things like that. But if it's something I can't answer, it's like, I know pretty much the Rolodex of somebody to refer you off to. And so that's the beautiful thing about the internet and people being able to connect from all over. So thanks. Christy's here.
Hi, sorry I'm late.
No, you're good. You
Awesome.
want to jump in and give your thoughts about just how to handle questions? What are things people ask you, and does it get confrontational? How do you deal with questions about your diet?
So I kind of, you know, I looked at your poll. The question I get most often is, what about your cholesterol? Like, so how's your cholesterol? And so, yeah, I'm a lean mass hyper responder. So that's how my cholesterol is. So that's a whole nother level of discussion, right? Because that's like on the forefront of sort of what's being discovered, you know, about cholesterol. It's all the studies that are going on right now. But if I just say to somebody, well, let me tell you, my LDL is over 400 or whatever, you know, I'm basically they think I'm gonna die like in 3 seconds. So that's a whole, gosh, it's a whole another layer, right, of explanation. And I'm not sure how convincing I am with that. I mean, I can point them to Dave Feldman, Nick Norwitz, you know, all of those studies. But I feel like that, like if that had been the first thing I had come in contact with, I don't know if I would have believed it or taken that on board at all. So yes, I often think it's unfortunate. Like for my doctor, I was hoping to be like, hey, check me out. I've lost this weight. I feel so much better. And she was very skeptical. And then she saw my cholesterol numbers. So I didn't convert her at all. She pretty much is in the, you know, the boat of thinking that I'm damaging my health. And, you know, that's too bad. But I get the cholesterol question most often. I'm also sometimes asked, how do I start? I've had several people ask me how they start. But when they find out like what a carb is, like I had one lady ask me, so how many beans can I have? And I'm like, yeah, no beans, like none of the beans. And she never did start. I mean, we had like an hour conversation, right? But during that conversation, that was one of the questions. I think she was of the thinking that it was going to be more all things in moderation. Because that's what people are used to hearing, right? Just all things in moderation, just eat less. So I think she thought I was going to say, you know, less beans or something. So I just think it is hard for some people to get their mind around. And even if I give them here's how you start, it is kind of a leap for people. And I think they really have to have a strong why, you know, to push them over the line.
Yeah, it can't just be like losing 13 pounds for summer. That's not a big enough line. Just not going to happen.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good stuff though. I just saw Dave Dave Saunier is one of my guys, and he just posted that his wife was having a checkup with her doctor and tattled on him and told the doctor that he's on a carnivore diet, and the doctor told her that's a great diet, and his wife was shocked because she doesn't like the fact that he's carnivore. It's great.
And he's a lean mass
he looks amazing. He's in great shape.
He's also a lean mass hyper responder.
He is. Yeah.
So I wonder if the doctor knows that. I wonder if she told him that. Let us know, David. Let us know.
Well, and you know, if you look at Zoe Harcum's a great resource for the cholesterol, because she was talking about, she had a video where she's talking about when someone asks her about, well, how's your cholesterol, she'll say it's fine, and then they start saying, well, what about your, you know, your LDL and HDL? Well, that's not cholesterol. Those are nanolipids. Are we talking about nanolipids or cholesterol? Please clarify. And if you don't know the difference, you probably need to check out of this conversation right now, because I do, right? Not that I know the difference, but the fact that she does, I was like, that's awesome. Just like totally put a doctor on his heels or her heels.
Yeah. That is awesome.
I interviewed her, but I feel like I need to watch her videos a few more times to like really, so that I can really know it, so I can say it.
She's brilliant.
You know? Yeah.
She's brilliant.
You know, I just wanted to share something. So I just remembered, you know, Neah, you were talking about how, like, you know, people in your current circle, people in your life, you don't really have too much backlash. And then I was like, you know, I think it was only really my mom. And then most people were just like, okay, do what makes you happy. But then I remembered this chain of emails that I had gotten from my sister's father, who is a doctor. And he wrote this whole email talking about how I don't think this is healthy for you. And I was just sending him studies and talking about how, like, you know, in Hong Kong, they eat more meat per capita than anybody else in the world. And they have some of the longest lifespans. And, you know, he said to me, he said, Ellie, you're eating at a caloric deficit. Of course, you're going to feel better after you lose all of that weight. And the people in Hong Kong, there's too many different types of people that live there. It's not, you can't go off of that. And I was like, oh, it's just like talking to a brick wall. It was awful. I just remembered that. I think I blocked it out a little bit.
It's hard. Did you say that was who was that? Was that an online comment or a person?
No, it was a person in my life. It's my sister's father.
Okay.
My sister's father, who's a doctor, he emailed me. I guess my sister was like, oh, you know, Sissy's doing this diet, and he felt that it was necessary to reach out to me via email. Long email.
Yeah, and I was listening today, kind of on that note too, a conversation about cholesterol, because I was kind of just brushing up, because that's really, you know, what most of you voted for, and sometimes I'm like, okay, yeah, what is it, you know, exactly, and what are all the beneficial functions, and why do we need cholesterol? And that's kind of how I like to approach some of these questions, is because I, like, by nature, I'm an arguer. Like, I love to argue, I love to debate, and I will, like, get into it with people. And I used to kind of be like rough and tough about it. Would be like, well, didn't you know this? And why would you think that? And don't you ever question this? And it's like, that never works. And so I've never convinced anyone by approaching it that way. And so what I've tried to do is shift it more to like, hey, let's understand, like, what is cholesterol? Like, do we know what it is at its fundamental? Like, what are the functions? And that's what I love about a lot of the conversations I hear, where like Dr. Berry will always bring this point up. Like, there's an evolutionary reason for certain functions that we don't understand because we're looking at it in a modern context. So like, I was listening to this conversation today with Dr. Berry and Dr. David Diamond about cholesterol. And it's like, he breaks down every single component of that. It's like, why do we need cholesterol? We need it to, you know, manufacture and keep intact the walls of every single cell in our body.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's why we make cholesterol endogenously, because we have to have it. It's involved in making hormones. It's involved in, you know, synthesizing vitamin D and like all these things that we need to function and affect the entire cascade of hormones. And so if one of those things is out of place, or we are artificially lowering our cholesterol, that affects all these different things going on. And so you never really get that context. You know, usually in these types of conversations where people are like, oh, well, you're eating a bunch of eggs and saturated fat, like your cholesterol. It's like, yeah, but these are all like, number one, it's a completely different population of people we're talking about, a completely different context in the terms that, like, we're not eating the standard American diet, which is what all of these studies that they're thinking of are comparing it to, right? They're not comparing it to even ketogenic diets in most cases. They're comparing it to people that eat packaged lasagna and pizza and drink Coke and tons of alcohol and, you know, super sweet Starbucks coffees every day and all of these seed oils and all of the other junk. And so when you start to think about, okay, where is this person coming from with their understanding? It's like, number one, the references that they've probably been given aren't even in the right context as far as what we're talking about here. And then number two, do we even understand the opposite side of this argument, which is all of the things we need cholesterol for, the importance, like why would our body make it every single day, regardless of what we take in dietarily, if it was so bad, you know, and we needed all these drugs to keep it so low? You know, it doesn't make any sense just right off the bat. And so when you just start thinking critically about this and asking people questions, it's like, well, almost from a point like you don't know the answer, where it's like, well, yeah, I've heard that, but I think doesn't cholesterol do some good, or isn't there a point for cholesterol in the body? And then see what they say, you know, and maybe they'll just think that it's like, well, I don't know. And then maybe even just planting that seed will go cause them to look that up, and they may stumble across Dr. Berry or Dr. Chafee or Dr. David Diamond or Dave Feldman or any of these people who talk about this. And so that's kind of the way that I'm learning to curb my passion in some, when it sort of comes out in almost this like too aggressive way sometimes with people. It's like, can I get people curious? How can I get somebody to think it was their idea? You know what I mean? To look into this further. And then obviously, I think we've all talked about this in one form or another, like just trying to model the behavior, you know, the behavior and the way that we learn about things, and showing our results is just a way to advertise without having to say anything. So that's kind of my my 2 cents.
I think the dietary cholesterol thing in 2015, it was published in Time Magazine and CNN had it, that dietary cholesterol is no longer a nutrient of concern. So we can just say that and say, listen, what I'm eating doesn't matter because my blood serum cholesterol is the only thing that matters. And this dietary, so eating eggs, just go look it up. 2015. This is not me. This is, I think the American Heart Association came out with that. So it's no longer a nutrient of concern. So we can eat whatever we want. And that kind of puts that one. But you're right, Neah. You can't ever argue someone. There's those 3 hills that people defend to the death on dates that I go on. You know, one is diet, one is religion, the other is politics. You're not going to argue any one of those people into faith in any of those things. They have to experience it. They have to get to a point where they want to change. Something has to drastically change their environment to where they're like, wow, maybe I need to look at this a different way. And your approach is much better. Maybe asking questions like, if they say, well, what about you're eating these eggs, like Ellie, like, you know, he said you're eating this terrible food, or whatever. You say, well, you know, have you seen the 2015 article yet? I'm just curious because I read it and it said I can eat basically eggs and not worry about cholesterol. So I don't know. And maybe just educating them. That's like I try to do with my son, where you'll be happy to know, Christy, I gave my son a homework assignment over spring break.
Oh, okay.
I told these guys this, but I basically gave him because he said he needed to introduce fiber to his diet because he was constipated. So I made him do research on that. I sent him down the rabbit hole, and now he's like, "Oh yeah, I was surprised." I'm like, "Okay, good. So you're learning something." But anyway, yeah.
So is he going to take a couple tablespoons of butter or some MCT oil then to fix that?
I don't care. He knows the answer now. It's his decision. I said, you're 14 now. You're making your own decision, son. I'm here to support you. As long as you're not hurting yourself in danger, putting yourself in danger, I'm good with it. So that's a great way to handle that. I think you're right on track with that, is that you just need to, and that's the hard thing. I mean, how do you, because a lot of times they are attacking us with their questions, right? It's really an attack, just like Ellie, yours was. I mean, that was obviously like, you're doing it wrong. I'm the doctor. I'm the authority here. You are not. And just like sending you, and you're like, okay, so how do you turn that back without being confrontational and still being loving and still being kind of a educational friendly way of doing it? Pique their interest, pique their curiosity, I guess.
Well, the
Yeah,
other
you got to make them
new
think it's their idea. Go ahead.
Yeah, like kids.
the other new information about cholesterol that I think many people don't know is how dynamic it is and how quickly it can change, and how like it doesn't take long and you can your numbers can be drastically wildly different in a very short order of time. So my mom was telling me, because she's gone, meat-based keto, 20 grams of carbs less a day and heavy on the meat. And, she has blood work coming up. And so I sent her, I forget the name of the video, but I sent her like a Dave Feldman video where he was talking about how he and his sister, what they did was they ate a whole bunch of saturated fat, like an insane amount of saturated fat. And if you do that for a few days, like 3 days before your blood work, like your LDL cholesterol will go down. And then he had a bunch of people do the same as N=1s. Like they did it too, and then submitted their labs, the results to him. Or Nick Norwitz with the Oreo cookies being a lean mass hyperresponder and adding in, that source of glucose. And it doesn't matter what, it can be a sweet potato, like a whole food like that, or it can be an Oreo cookie. But your LDL, if you're a lean mass hyperresponder, is going to drop like a stone, and it's going to do it. He did that in just a couple of weeks by adding 100 grams of carbs, for 2 weeks. And his LDL, just dropped. So, it's amazing how dynamic it is. People think that it's the cholesterol and it just slowly, clogs up your arteries in this like slow march, but the cholesterol isn't clogging anything, and it's very dynamic. Like it can change from day to day.
Totally. Yeah, there's so much. Cholesterol is it's fascinating. And the more I go back and continue to read about it and learn about it, the more I'm like, we just need to take the hands off. You know what I mean? Like eat the proper food and just stop worrying about these numbers. So it's almost like tracking, kind of like we talked about last week, where you can almost get these dopamine hits, right? If you go and get good labs and you're like, I'm fine. Now I can just kind of coast till, the next time I get my labs drawn and then deal with it then, right? Like it's this set of numbers that, potentially can give you some information about what's going on. But we have to look in the broader context of like the whole body, the bigger picture. And I think that's one of the best ways that I've been able to reframe the cholesterol argument is like, well, what is it compared to what are your triglycerides? What's your HDL? What is your weight? Are you carrying a lot of excess fat? Do you have a lot of inflammation? Like, stress is a huge one. And like all these other things contribute to they're all risk factors for coronary artery disease or having a heart attack or something like that. And so it's not just LDL. Excuse me. Still dealing with allergies. They're getting better, but I feel like a stuffy, drainy, drippy person still. They're all like, you have to look at this whole spectrum of different factors to truly assess your risk for something in a meaningful way. And that's going to be so individual depending on your health history and what you're dealing with and how far you've come. And so, Dr. Baker always points out, if you're concerned about a heart attack risk and heart disease risk, like go get a coronary calcium scan and see like how much plaque do you have built up in your arteries right now. And then, as far as we know, there's nothing you can really do, nothing that's been shown to reduce that or take it away. Although we may see people have improvements the longer they eat, this way. But, it's the change over time in something like that, where you can go and get yourself scanned again in a year or in 2 years and see like, okay, I haven't added anything to this. There's literally no more buildup happening. So regardless of what your LDL might be or your total cholesterol or whatever, like if your triglycerides and your HDL are all in check and you're at a healthy weight and you're feeling great and your other hormones are fine, it's like that's probably not the concern, that, you know, it doesn't have the weight that we've been historically told that it has. And so it's just like learning about all the different things that are going on in the body and how this way of eating improves so many other risk factors for, you know, the thing that we all don't want to happen, right? The cancer diagnosis or the heart attack or whatever else it might be. And so again, that's kind of the way I look at it.
We had a question at 6:20.
Yes.
I put it in the private chat, so if you want to look
Okay.
that up. Yeah, and the thing is, like, no other animals that eat meat get heart disease, right? And our body actually makes cholesterol. Cholesterol's so bad for you. Why are we making it?
Yeah.
Right? That's something. It's a good question. Like, why would our body create cholesterol? Why are our brain made of cholesterol on our cell walls? Why is everything made of cholesterol? And why are we creating it if it's so bad? And I've heard people talk about the cholesterol being like the fire brigade, right? And the fire brigade shows up when there's problems, and that's why we have high cholesterol.
Right.
Oh, you got heart disease. Well, the heart disease is there from the other things we're eating, and the cholesterol is there to try to fight the inflammation. So, you know, why would we want to get rid of the fire brigade? You don't want to cut costs on the fire brigade. That's one thing. If you own a house, you want the fire brigade there. You want it next door. So I think people just have to get a new look at what the fire brigade's like or what cholesterol is like, and kind of get a different conception on that. So.
Is this a question? I think this is the first one I saw scrolling
Yep,
through. Sorry, I'm
that's
not super
it.
efficient at managing all the comments yet. So
Okay.
if you guys see anything, yeah, definitely. I don't know if you can pull it up or if only I can, but anyway.
I can't pull it up.
Okay.
I just put it in the private chat.
Okay, cool. So Jasmine says, have you guys heard of people being, I'm guessing, tryptophan deficient?
Yeah, tryptophan, yeah.
I mean, personally, no, I haven't come across anyone saying that. I don't know that I ever have been. But just, I mean, what do y'all think? Have you heard anything?
I have
that?
not heard about that. No.
Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know.
I know tryptophan knocks me out on Thanksgiving when I eat some turkey. I'll tell you that.
That's what I was
right. It's an amino acid.
Yeah, it's an amino acid, but
yeah. I don't know about
It says
deficiencies.
it's essential, so this means your body cannot produce it. You must get it from your diet. And so if you're eating a lot of meat, if you're eating a carnivore diet, you're more than likely getting sufficient. That's kind of as a side note. That's kind of why when I was tracking for a while, I've taken about the last, I don't know, probably about a week off since we had our last discussion. But about Chronometer, it's kind of cool when you put your food in, it has little labels for all the micronutrients and everything in there. And so you can go in and see, like, well, how much B12 did I get today? How much tryptophan did I get today? Like, you could actually go and look if you are tracking, or if you're curious, you know, if you're getting all of these things. But then we also have to talk about, you know, the RDA recommendations, right? And where did those come from? And again, what context were those derived from? Like, were those actually healthy people, right? Or are they just the first however many thousand people that come in every year, and they take that average? So it doesn't mean the people are healthy, and it doesn't mean it's necessarily normal. It's just the average. And then we, you know, as far as like reference ranges go, but then, you know, what are these RDAs based on? They're based on a diet in the context of eating carbohydrates, and probably eating a lot of carbohydrates, which typically, I mean, we all know with anti-nutrients and different, even fiber and things like that, can interfere with the absorption and assimilation of all these nutrients. So when we take all that stuff out and eat like the way we're eating, we just have more access, and we don't need to consume as many of these things in general to probably get what our body needs. So
just as a side, I looked up tryptophan contents of meats, and beef has the greatest, it looks like. Beef,
good.
cattle, dairy, 326 milligrams per 148 grams of edible portion. So that's quite a bit. Then chicken's next, then probably turkey's on par with chicken. They didn't have turkey in here, but I mean, so out of all those meats, it looks like beef's probably your best. You're probably going to get a lot.
That's me.
Nice.
Yeah.
I could do it.
I figured I'd
could
start
do
just
it.
throwing some stuff up here, because I want to get y'all involved too. But yeah, how did it become a turkey thing with the tryptophan?
I think everybody just overdoes it on Thanksgiving and then they go into like a sugar coma and then they had to blame something and they didn't want to blame the sugar.
Oh.
Yeah,
And so
It was
yeah, it
funny
could have been
though.
anything.
During Thanksgiving, this was the first year where I actually felt like, oh, I had too much tryptophan, and I was actually tired after eating turkey. Whereas before, I had never, I had plates upon plates of food and felt drowsy, but I think I was just probably a little bit more sensitive. So that was interesting to me. Just so.
So turkey does have a little more than and so does tuna. Actually, tuna has more tryptophan than beef does, and and milk. A quart of milk has a huge amount of tryptophan in it. So
Oh,
That makes
interesting.
sense, though. That makes sense to
Put
help
you to sleep.
kids sleep. Yeah,
Right.
help kids
Mhm.
sleep. That's what they drink.
Yeah.
well, warm milk. Yeah. Warm milk if you can't sleep.
Warm milk
Mm-hmm.
or hot toddy. And my grandma used to do.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I have to say, that's what I would always do. Like, I've had seasonal allergies in the last 3 states I moved to, and they've been pretty bad. And I've never been a big medicine taker, even before I was concerned about my health. But so I'd always kind of like suffer through things. But I think when I lived in Arkansas, I would drink like a hot toddy, and I don't know, I was like, that just works. You know what I mean? It just makes you feel better and go to sleep. But not doing that right now. So I always find this interesting. Joey says, we did the human diet in the 70s in my bodybuilding days. We didn't call it carnivore, right? It's like Rocky drinking raw eggs and milk and meat, right?
It's
remember-
my understanding that all the bodybuilders back then ate very, very heavy meat.
Mhm.
Yeah, they did. I'm eating raw eggs. I'm eating a dozen eggs a day for the last 4 weeks now.
Man,
raw.
you doubled me. I only ate 6, Larry. I'm
I've been eating a
slacking.
double. Well, today I only had 4.
Slacking
but
over here.
Today's the first day I'm cutting back. I'm going back to beef. But I've been hitting the
Okay.
gym, and my exercise, my workouts are epic. My waistline dropped again. I bought new shorts, and I'm going to get a new belt to tighten it up because it's crazy. I'm getting the V, the taper. At 58 years old, I'll be 58 May 4th.
Awesome.
And my carniversary is coming up on the 22nd of this month. My 1 year. So,
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Awesome.
Thanks. We're having a get together, a live meetup Saturday here in Georgetown, Texas. So if any viewers from your channels that are in the Austin, Central Texas area, please feel free to come.
Yeah, I was gonna say I only had 4 eggs today. I'm like, maybe I need
Great
to
though.
up that. I'm just kidding.
Good.
I feel like in the beginning of my carnivore journey, I was having issues with my skin and probably a little bit of like histamine issues. And so I cut off eggs for a while, and now I feel like I can tolerate them. So I'm really happy. It's just like a feel good breakfast. It's like I'm kind of normal again. Eggs are always associated with breakfast. So I find that to be a silly non-scale victory, but it's good to me.
Dr. Judy Cho is saying that a lot of people that have those histamine reactions, they do go away over time if they're on carnivore for a while. So that's kind of cool. I didn't know that. I thought they just had them forever.
I need to watch more of Judy Cho because I just watched like one of her videos yesterday or the day before because I've heard people talk about her and it's just not someone I've watched. But oh my gosh, yeah, I need to watch more of those. Fantastic.
Yeah, apparently she has a great book as well.
Yes, I have not read her. I'm so bad about physically reading books, but I've watched so many of her interviews, and I mean her story, what she went through, mental health wise, and when she was nursing her baby and like all that stuff, like it brings me to tears every time I hear her tell that story, and now her transformation is incredible. So yeah, she's somebody I'd love to interview this year. She's on my list of people I want to try to talk to because I like how she takes a very, I don't know if open-minded is the right word, but like she is so insistent about like, let's find the root cause. So like if that's mold, you know what I mean? Like she's like, her whole team now is working to really address, like, obviously we use carnivore as a standard protocol to like remove 99% of all the crap, but then she offers so many other different functional aspects of this, like a gut healing protocol, and talking about SIRS and all these other things too, that that could be a root cause of some of, like, maybe somebody like me, you know, it's like, what is this? Is this mold? Is that making me allergic to everything? Like, what is happening? So, yeah, I really like her approach too. And I love this. There's so many more people out here now, and coming from all different backgrounds and perspectives and with different specialties. And that's so great, so that people can find the help they need.
Yeah, she kind of is kind of like the house MD, kind of the investigative reporter, like the one-offs. Like, why is this not working for you? It should work. So let's find out what is causing it. And like you said, it could be mold. It could be some other thing, like where her body's still healing, so that's not happening yet. So I love that she does that, like investigative stuff, and then reports it, like investigative reporting. It's really cool. Right.
Yeah, I'm on her email list, and she has great emails too, and they're very engaging and stuff. This is cool.
Yeah.
I'm very lucky. My primary care physician, who is a brand new doctor, fully supports keto style diet. She saw my advanced lipid profile and she understood it. She said, wow, big and fluffy LDL. Yes.
That's
the healthy kind. Yeah.
Yep. That's what I have. And I don't think my doctor would understand it. I ordered that test myself just because I know you can tell based on your HDL to triglyceride ratio and all of that. And you don't really need the particle density, but I got it anyways. And yes, big and fluffy, all the good things, but I don't. So, I mean, I have that information, but I didn't give it to her because I just think, you know, she wants me to retest, and I'm just not doing that because it's not going to change. I'm not eating Oreos or fruit or sweet potatoes or bread or any
Can you
of those
change
other...
doctors?
So,
Maybe
yeah, I
you need a
can.
doctor.
I can. I found a couple. There's a carnivore doctor, about 20 miles south of me, and there's a low carb doctor about 10 miles east of me, and I just need to call their offices. The problem is where I am, like, nobody's taking new patients, but I do need to call their offices and see if they're taking new patients. I just haven't done it, and I need to, because it's like right now I don't need a doctor. So I think that's why I don't feel the urgency. But like, if I need a doctor
right,
for anything, it'd be good to be like in somebody's practice and, a patient, because I don't think, because I'm sort of ignoring my doctor's, orders at this point to get my blood rechecked. I don't know what she would do if I had something else, like an acute something that I needed her for. So yeah, I do need to do that, Larry.
I do want to comment on this, Jasmine's comment, because this is something that I just went through and I have found resolution from. Okay. And so this is just my personal experience, but and I think you're saying this, from what you're seeing, it might be related to tryptophan deficiency, which I haven't explored that connection yet, but I have on my watch later playlist. I've been trying not to be on YouTube watching videos all day. So I've been building this watch later playlist. And then when I get to it, I go through the ones that I'm like, yes, I really wanted to. And I saw that same video that you're talking about pop up on Life and DIY channel, which I haven't watched yet. So I don't know what she says, but I was carnivore about 6 months. And then in January, I went Lion. And then in February, I decided to add some things back in, but I was still not feeling great energy. And I was really, really tired a lot. So I'd be like dragging, tired, ready to go to bed at like 8:30. And then I'd be in bed until sometimes 7 a.m. still, and not feeling rested. Like I was sleeping all night. I was waking up, but I would fall right back asleep. But I was just not feeling the energy. And so I thought, maybe I haven't been eating enough fat. Maybe my protein's too high. Maybe I'm still not really fat adapted, even after being carnivore this whole time, because I've been either eating too much or my macros aren't right. So that's why I started tracking macros in February, and I intentionally dropped my protein and upped my fat. And I go somewhere, my goal was somewhere around 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram? Yeah, because it's like 0.7 per pound. 0.7 to 1 per pound is somewhere in like the recommended range for protein. So that's where I was trying to shoot for and get high fat. And that's when I started waking up between 1 and 3 a.m. every single night without fail. I was still going to bed at the same time, about 8:30, because I was very tired and ready to go to sleep then. But I would wake up, couldn't go back to sleep, or I would lay there for 2.5 hours sometimes, couldn't go back to sleep. I do self-hypnosis. Sometimes that helped, but not always. I got magnesium spray, a couple times that worked, but not always. And it was starting to drive me nuts. And people were saying, well, maybe you're just adapting and you don't need that much sleep anymore. But I was still feeling tired most days. Some days I'd be okay, but I was like, I don't think this is right. So I did two things. I made it my mission to get 80% of my calories from fat. And that is right around, I'm 5'4", between 120, 125 pounds. And about 1 gram of protein per gram of, or pound of ideal body weight, which I calculated at 150 pounds, whatever. So the rest of that for my total caloric intake would be from fat. That's somewhere around 150 grams of fat per day for me, just to give you a ballpark. When I started consistently hitting that 150 grams of fat per day and keeping my protein somewhere in that range, not too high, I started to sleep again. And I started staying up a little bit later at the same time. So I started going to bed around 9, and then I was sleeping till about 5 and waking up, sometimes 4:30. And then I pushed it to about 10, and I was waking up around 5, between 5 and 6. And so that's where I'm at right now. And I don't wake up. I haven't for the last 2 weeks woken up at all. And it was happening every single night, no matter what I ate, how much I ate the day before, kind of thing. But it was my ratio. And I've heard this. There's a video by, she used to be Carnivore Yogi back in the day, but I think it's Sarah Kleiner, I think. Wellness is her channel. She has a video out there that is, her experience was the exact same thing. She had to go much, much, much higher fat to get her sleep and hormones back in check. And Dr. Elizabeth Bright is another person I would recommend checking out. She talks a lot about iodine, which I also supplement, and, for potential thyroid issue, and then which affects sleep and vice versa. And then, so it's this weird hormone thing again, right? It's like, we can't just talk about cholesterol without talking about a bunch of other things. We can't just really talk about sleep and serotonin, or not serotonin, melatonin and cortisol and things like that without talking about the entire lifestyle and hormonal cascade. And so I'm just wanted to pull this one out here because it sucks. It sucks when you can't sleep. It sucks when you wake up and then your mind starts racing. Why can't I sleep? And then I'm sitting here reading, which I shouldn't be on my phone. Why can't I sleep? And I've noticed, I did a few live streams on this in the past, and there are people that this is happening to. And so we talked about that. There's a couple videos on my channel, but I would check out Dr. Bright, who talks about a high fat approach, especially for women and especially for hormonal regulation. And then Sarah Kleiner's channel has info on that too. So I hope you get some help with that.
Dr. Bright's amazing. She's great. And I send that to all the females that I talk to, because I'm like, hey, listen, I'm a guy. Yeah. I don't know. What do I know? I just eat steak. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, I watched one of her videos. She said, if you want to visualize it, a simple way to do it is just a stick of butter and a pound of ground beef. That's a good way to visualize. For me, I'm a very visual guy. If I can just go that, I'm like, okay, I get that. That's totally too easy. I can do that. So I love the way that she does that. She's very straightforward in her approach in discussing, like you said, how all the hormones are made from cholesterol. So, you can't, men in low T, guess what? Eat eggs, cholesterol. I mean, just, you need cholesterol. You need a lot of building blocks to make testosterone. So I used to have low T, not anymore. It's pretty great. I can tell you as an old guy, it's pretty fun. So, it makes you feel young again. It just does. You get the growth hormone, all these things. Yeah. Dr. Bright's just amazing. Another one. There's so many brilliant people in this community. It's so hard for me to believe. And it's all free information. It's like getting a college education, for free on YouTube with all these great professors. I love it.
I say that all the time. I'm like, I feel like I have a degree just from the hundreds of hours of free college level lectures you can listen to. All the info's out there, guys.
Absolutely. I like Low Carb Down Under. That's a great channel for all that kind of that kind of knowledge.
It is.
Anybody have?
Oh,
See, these
yeah.
hours go
Hey,
by so
Thelma.
fast.
Carnivore for 80 years. Wow.
Mhm.
Carnivore the rest of my days. Congratulations. Yeah.
Yeah, we saw her on
Yeah.
Lioness, didn't we, Ellie, the other
Mhm.
day? Hi, Thelma.
Yeah.
Nice to see you again.
Yeah, hey. That's why I was like, yeah, Thelma. It's
Mhm.
great. We're all getting to know each other too. We can support each other because there's a lot of naysayers out there, but yeah, you had shared with me a comment that someone had written to you saying that about our narrative. Should we talk a little bit about that before we go? I think that'd be funny.
I'd like to hear it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's and I brought it up because I had my my healing story. That was kind of one of the big first carnivore videos I made, where it's like I just laid out my whole health history and everything I've tried and been through and how I got to carnivore. And I get 98% of the comments are supportive, very nice. Like, I've been through the same thing. It's like you're speaking my story kind of thing. So, again, these are in the minority of comments. But I've noticed a few very similar ones popping up lately. And I thought, is this just me? Like, am I missing the point of this question? Because to me, it just sounds like it's not even making any sense. But and so I put this screenshot in a post, so if anyone wants to read it specifically, but it's just from this person on that 45-50 minute video of me sharing my entire story about everything. And they say, okay, ... but it's not carnivore and the philosophy behind it that helped me, in essence. It was simply removing the foods that agitated your condition. Your anecdotal story doesn't mean all vegetables are bad and the carnivore narrative is true. It means you specifically found success by increasing your protein intake, which that is not at all what I talked about, by the way, and reducing your fiber. However, this does not mean that all fiber is not good for you. In fact, fiber is arguably the most beneficial food group to consume, period.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting here thinking, like,
Wow.
first
Where do you
off,
start?
Yeah.
okay, but it's not carnivore. Like, what's the definition of carnivore? It's removing all of the things that
Mhm.
that cause problems, like namely all plants, right? And then it is an elimination diet. Some people add things back in, right? And that's fine. If you figure out you can tolerate avocados, go for it. I'm not going to beat anybody over the head with a club for adding things back in. And the philosophy behind it, it's like, that is the philosophy, though. It's like, remove the things that cause the problem, and then you're left with a version of a proper human diet that is ancestral, that has ancestral evidence to back it up, that you can essentially live off of for the rest of your life and be in great health. So, like, what do you mean if that's not the philosophy? Like, am I missing something, or are they just angry that I said fiber's bad, and if you have digestive problems for 15 years and nothing else has worked, maybe you should try cutting out the fiber because it works.
Yeah, I have a story about fiber. So, ever since I was a teenager, I struggled with I like to call it chronic constipation. It started. I was known, and this is so embarrassing, but I was known as the girl who would clog all the toilets. And my mom would freak out, like, you clogged all the toilets, and she'd scream into the house. And like, it was never like a question of like, well, why is that like clogging the toilets? Like, what is the problem? I used to eat a varied diet as a kid. Obviously, there were some processed foods and stuff like that, but then as I became an adult and I became more health conscious, I went to the doctor and they said to just eat more fiber. And so I was doing that. I was eating tons of, I was doing like the low fat, high, higher carb, lower protein diet, standard American basically. And it became so much worse for me that this is like horrible, but I would only go like once a month. Christy knows. She's like, oh yeah, no. I used to only go once a month or twice a month. And every time I would go, it was like 5 to 6 hours of like contraction, like labor pain. And I would have these like cycles of like running to the bathroom. I'm not trying not to be too graphic, but like,
No, that's good.
basically filling the toilet, and then going and lying in pain for like an hour or two, and then going and doing it again, and then coming back and doing it again. And I lived like that for years and years and years. And then when I started keto, doing 20 carbs or less, it went away.
Yeah.
And then after I brought back food back in because my doctor told me that I needed to stop because I was pregnant and I listened to her, constipation came back and it was awful. It wasn't as bad as it was because I was more conscious about sugar and stuff like that. But then when I went to carnivore, like by the time I was doing carnivore had been like several years later, and I was still kind of only going like maybe a little bit more, like maybe once a week, but it was always painful and long and constipation, and now that I'm on carnivore, it's like nothing. It's so easy. It's like, oh, I just sit here. I don't have to be on my phone and pray to God and wish that I could like get out of this dungeon, because that's how I felt my relationship was with going to the bathroom. And I'm regular and it feels great. And so I say, no, I don't think fiber is essential at all, because that essential thing that you just said was nearly killing me. Like I probably should have gone to the hospital from being so impacted. But I just dealt with it for years because that's a whole nother thing, but I just didn't care about myself, to be honest. I was just like, it's just another thing, obesity, depression, whatever, and just live with it. But you don't have to if you suffer with that. And that's my poop story. You can't have a carnivore stream without poop being talked about.
Well, fiber is just a non-digestible carbohydrate, and there is no essential carbohydrate, therefore we don't need it. But it's also not digestible, which means it's just it's garbage, right? It just goes straight into the toilet. You might as well skip the step and just throw it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good point.
Don't I feel stupid, right?
Well, and people will make the microbiome argument with that, right? They'll be like, but you have to have this diverse microbiome that feeds on this fiber to, be healthy. And there again, it's like, well, based on what? Based on what information? Like I could find studies that say, I remember I got this question a long time back, and you can go and type it, like alpha diversity is the term that so it's like how many different major species of bacteria live in your gut. And there was actually a study that showed that people that had a higher alpha diversity, so a much more diverse microbiome, had it correlated with anxiety and some other mental health conditions. So like, I don't, there you can find studies that say you have to have this type of microbiome, and then you can find some that say it's not good. So it's like we're going down that same path of like, we don't really know anything, you guys. Like we don't know from this type of research. Like, so try it.
You can just go back to like, I like the simple picture thing, like the pound of beef and the butter. But another simple picture is this: we're the only animal on the planet that eats a diverse diet. Name another one that eats a diverse diet on a regular basis. So we're probably not meant to, right? We just do it because it's entertainment. But really, every other animal, you can put sheep and cattle on the same pasture and they eat different grass. They will not compete for the food. They will never eat each other's grass. It's amazing. And fish don't eat wheat, so don't eat farm fish. Fish eat other fish. They're carnivores, right? Lions, they eat animals. They don't eat leaves off trees. So I think the whole diverse microbiome is probably what you need to eat a terrible diet that's of survival food that we're doing with potatoes and things, but not to eat a proper diet.
I'm muted. Yeah, I agree. And I think, again, like that's such a new area of research and exploration. And I mean, we don't know for sure. And so, I tend to go with the simplest, what is that? Occam's razor. The simplest answer is usually at least the place to start. Right. And it oftentimes is the correct answer. And so, and that's where a lot of this ancestral evidence comes in. It's like, well, look at what would make sense. We started out, with a different digestive system, but we've evolved over the 2.5 million years or so that we've had access to fire and tools, and we started scavenging and became meat eaters. We don't have the same digestive tract as herbivores. We don't have this comparative anatomy thing. I know it's kind of getting past the hour, so I don't want to keep anybody if you have to go, but I could go off on a tangent there, I suppose.
I'll stay with you
But,
forever, Neah. So the ends of the earth.
How
Have to
about
make
y'all?
it
You have to
awkward
go.
next time.
I can stay
I'm
up for a
okay.
little longer.
Yeah.
Okay. Do a few more minutes. If anybody has any questions yet, I didn't see any.
Socks for Life
specific
just put one
ones.
up. I mean, we
Yeah.
kind of addressed it earlier, but maybe they weren't watching. So,
This here?
yeah.
Okay. I'm about to see a new holistic doctor for the first time. What should I say about the carnivore diet? I'm worried about conflicts about possible increased cholesterol with labs. Yeah, that's we've commented on this a little bit throughout the talk, but I think, it's a very nuanced thing, right? You kind of got to feel out the person that you're sitting there with, and perhaps they're kind of like Christy's doctor, right? And is a little bit more open to looking at some, or no, you said yours wasn't.
Mine
open.
Mine is
was
like
not at all.
LDL is the
You said
only thing
there
I
was-
care about. And here, change your diet. And in 3 months, we'll
Right.
retest you. She wants to put me on a statin if it's still high, which is why I'm not
Okay.
going to retest. It's still high and I'm not going to take the statin anyway. So yeah, we're at a stalemate.
There was somebody in here that was saying their doctor was open to, and they identified the different particle size as good or something. So someone's
He's
on
Kanye.
Yeah, David.
Dave's
So
Kanye.
Yeah.
yes, that's right. Thank you. So, you may have a provider who's very open to it. I know sometimes in the functional, holistic space, it's still very plant-based and it's still very kind of anti-meat. And so you kind of have to just see who you're dealing with. And then, yeah, we've talked about some different strategies here, and Dr. Berry talks about this as well. It's like, you can, I might come armed with some research, perhaps, about the specific things that you're concerned about, and say, not from an I know more than you and I'm trying to one up you as the healthcare professional, but it's like, hey, I read about this. What do you think? And just give it to them, and say, like, this is the newest research, because we're all supposed to be, as healthcare providers, are supposed to be keeping up with the newest research. And so maybe they just haven't seen this stuff. And so being informed, and ultimately it's your decision at the end of the day, and you can always find a new one if you don't like them. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I think I just finished reading Lies My Doctor Told Me, which is not a carnivore book. It's a keto book, but it was before he went carnivore. But it still addresses that really well about finding a doctor you can partner with. So it's good to broach it early and find out what his thoughts are on it, for sure. If that's a new doctor, because you may want to start looking for another one right away if it's a major opposition situation, to find one that's at least willing to work with you on what your plans are and what you're doing.
Yeah, I think that you're the boss when it comes to your own health, and you're paying them, and you would hope that they're doing a good job. And so if they're, obviously if they're concerned and stuff like that, I mean, you appreciate that, but if it's not going to work out, it's not going to work out. And so you just do your best to find someone who is willing to meet you at least halfway. If not, you got to fire them, like Christy did. Fire.
Yeah, I'm in the process of, I'm just doing it in slow motion. I'm firing my doctor in slow motion, you guys.
I don't get that luxury because I'm the VA, so I get what they give me.
Yeah,
I can request,
absolutely
but
true.
the odds of getting a VA doctor this carnivore is so far not great.
Yeah, I like what Julia said. She said, ask the doctor about ketogenic diets. That's more generalized than carnivore, and carnivore is just a form of a ketogenic diet. So that could be a good, yeah, there it is. I think that's a really good advice. Good job.
I agree, because there's a lot of studies, and again, like Dr. Berry, I know is somebody who always, anytime he has a video about something where he cites a specific paper, he will leave the link so that we can, read it for ourselves, number one, and download that and print it and take it to our provider and just say, hey, what do you think about this? Or, just to kind of open up the conversation, because it can be hard to remember everything and kind of know what to say and stuff. So I feel like if it was me, that's probably what I would do. I would just come armed with papers, and then, I mean, I've actually done that in the past and gotten completely vetoed, and kind of like, they just literally took it and tossed it to the side and was like, yeah, we're going to be doing this. And I was like, okay, this is the last time I'm coming here. But sometimes, so do what you can. But at the end of the day, we all decide what we're going to put in our bodies. And if you want to I guess I had like 5 thoughts at the same time there. I haven't found a physician that I personally want to, I haven't been to a primary care doctor in a long time, and I would like to have one. I'd like to have a partner, who I can work with to get some labs done and, just check on things from time to time. But where do you start? I don't know sometimes. So, well, I think that was a really good conversation. I think we hit a lot of good points. Hopefully that was helpful for everybody. And of course, the replay is going to be available if you're, jumped in late or had a question and, we didn't have time to get to it today. And I will leave a link to everybody who was in here tonight, their channels in the description. So make sure to go subscribe. Like I said, we all come from slightly different backgrounds and have different experiences. So it's really cool that we can all share, our stories and then come together to try to help. So it's whatever you're dealing with, there's probably somebody out there in this space who has a similar story to help support you. So thanks for everybody who was in here live. And of course, if you're watching the replay and for participating with your comments and questions. And like I said, go subscribe to everyone's channel. And let's see. I think, everybody's name pops up here.
Hey,
go ahead.
Just a real quick one on your search for doctors. There's a website called Diagnosis Diet from the author of Change Your Diet, Change Your Mind, Gloria Eid or Georgia Eid?
Georgia Eid.
Georgia.
Yeah. And she has a clinician directory. And if you go there, you see Judy Cho in Austin. You see, I'm looking at Texas right now, Holly Kirby in Georgetown, Texas. Yeah, they have a
Judy's
clinician.
in Austin?
Yeah, you didn't know that?
No.
Yeah, she's right here in Austin. So
you're kidding me.
Diagnosis Diet, they have a directory. So if you go to diagnosisdiet.com and look up clinician directory, you can look up your state, you can look up, and then you can find a doctor that is carnivore friendly. So definitely that's a place to check it out. They're putting together a great database.
That's cool, because I've come across a bunch of other ones and I have never found anything helpful. They say, oh, carnivore, keto doctors. And so thank you, Ellie, too, for putting that down there. Because I can't believe I didn't know Judy Cho was in Austin. See, I love Texas more and more every day.
I'm sharing the screen. So there she is right there. Austin, Texas, USA. Nutritional therapist, food addiction specialist, peers. But there's all kinds of people here in Texas. You can see Plano, Gunter. Well, I guess that's it. There's not that many.
Well, that's more than I've come across.
Yeah.
Even remotely close to me before. So thank you.
But anyway, check that website out. Maybe you can find, or maybe Christy, you can find someone close by.
Yeah, I'll check. I did check one of the websites. That's where I found the I don't know, low carb one. I forget which website it was though. Wasn't that one, so I'll go check that one. And then the other one was like on a Facebook message board. Somebody asked like, hey, does anyone know of any doctors that would be friendly to the carnivore diet? Like, I didn't ask it. There's some other carnivore around here asking it.
Nice.
And then they answered. So it was like an answer that was, I'm like, oh, I got to like maybe call their office.
That's
they
awesome.
said, he'll just tell you to eat meat and drink milk. I was like, okay.
That's awesome.
There it is.
Yeah.
There you go.
Cool.
Diagnosis Diet. Yeah. Thanks.
Awesome.
Thanks, Ellie.
Well, thanks you all so much. This was really fun. And
thanks, Neah.
who knows who will be in next week? I hope you all will join again next week, and we'll drop a new poll soon so we can get your guys' feedback. And thanks everybody for being here. We'll see you next week.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll try. I'll see you. Bye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.